Hello, buenas noches. How's everybody doing? Glad that y'all are joining me live tonight. It is Tuesday. It feels like it's been a really long time since I talked to y'all, but it's only been a week, but boy, has it been a week. And it just so happens that I had tonight's guest scheduled really for months, for weeks, without any thought to the outcome of last week's election. So we are going to be talking about leaving the US. That is something that I did 8 years ago. I packed up my 15-year-old, my miniature schnauzer. I left the US and I have not looked back. My name is Adelia Day. Good Lord. My name is Adelia Aborashade. In case you are new here, this is my channel where I share about my life over how I've been living my life outside the US. We talk about travel, particularly solo travel for women, as well as we talk about money. I am a financial educator, a money coach. And to do all the things we want to do to live the life that we want to live, you got to have some money. So, if those are topics that are of interest to you, you have found the right place. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, YouTube will know to bring more of this type of content to your feed. So, I talk about my experience leaving the US, my reasons behind that all the time. Y'all always get to hear from me. But tonight I have a guest that I want y'all to meet. Hello, good evening. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself, special guest?
Hello. It's so good to be with you and to hear a little bit about your story. My name is Unique Redwood, and I am an author. I can say that confidently now. This is my second book that we'll be talking about tonight. My first book is called White Women Cry and Call Me Angry. And my second book is called We Quit America. And I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Okay. Um, so given the title of your newest book, I have to ask, why did you quit America?
Why did I quit America? Oh my goodness. How much time do we have for this conversation? There's so many reasons to quit America. Um, let's see. I would say that okay, let me just start by saying that I was originally quite resistant to the idea. It was my husband who was more open, even though he was born in America and I was not. So when we started visiting my home country of Jamaica, and he was like, this was about, I don't know, 10, 11 years ago, he was saying, we could do this. And I kept saying, no. I was the one like, I have to work. Like, what are you talking about? And then I think the main push was in 2020 when he said to me, I think we've got to get out for our marriage. I think we've got to get out if we're going to save our marriage. And it so happened to coincide with the pandemic. And I was like, okay, well, let's go. We're going to go for 3 months, take a break, reset, and then we'll be back. And I could not leave. I could not leave to go back. And so we got there in 2020 and we did not leave. We got dogs. We just settled in. We bought a car. And then before you know it, it was like, oh, we live here now. And we cannot go back.
That's very interesting that it was your husband who initiated this thought and you were the resistant one, because in the work that I do, in the people that I talk to on this channel, I come across a lot of women who are gung ho about leaving the US and they're stuck trying to get their partner to come along.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
was there anything in particular that made you give it consideration that you weren't giving it previously?
yeah. I mean, it was when I got there in 2020. I got there in the pandemic, and the next morning I woke up and I was just crying because it felt different. Like energetically, it felt different to not be on US soil. It was like this weight off my shoulders. First day, first day, all of what I've been carrying, all and that's what I wrote about in my first book, all of the interactions at work with the white women, um, all of the racism, the microaggression, all of it, like, just felt like, oh, wait a second. Why have I been saying no to this idea for so long? And so I think that in that moment, having experienced it, I just was like, I want this. This is what I want. Now it took a long time to like fully make the transition because there's a lot of planning and all of that, but I just felt this weight off my shoulder to not have to interact with whiteness and white supremacy and white systems all the time, and to be in a black country. It was everything. It was everything.
As somebody who has yet to live in a Black majority country, I can say that I have still experienced something similar.
Mhm.
I have been very cognizant and very careful and very intentional to create a life where I only interact with people I want to, people who treat me the way I want to be treated. And so if somebody's watching this and they're like, I'm headed to this country and it's not a Black country, you can you can still get that reprieve. Now,
Mhm.
one of the questions you asked yourself was, why have I been fighting this? I'm curious. What answer did you find?
Yeah, I mean, it boils down to the centrality that work played in my life, and I had been grinding, right? Like for many reasons. One, I worked in the social sector, so I was really working on behalf of Black people, working to try to make systems work for Black people. So I was committed to that. There is no question that I was committed to that. I was committed to the liberation of our people. But I was also trying to make more money, right? Not just for myself, but for my kids, for my family, to make sure that everybody was well taken care of. Um, I was trying to advance in my career, right? Like I went to school with bachelor's, master's, PhD, and wanted to like use that education to do something really important. So I was trying to advance in that way too. And so I was on that hamster wheel. I was on that, moving up very quickly in my career to become the president of a foundation. And so for me, work was so central to my life that thinking about anything else outside of that, I just couldn't conceive of it. Um, and it took me a while to deprogram, right? And to say, okay, my life will no longer be organized around work. It will be organized around my wellness, right? Around my family. Um, but I have to tell you, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy.
And I'm thinking, and
Uh,
you tell me if I'm wrong here, that you probably would not have had that epiphany to like decenter work and center your own wellness had you stayed in the US.
yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, I had tried. It's not like I hadn't tried to decenter and to take care of myself and balance and all these things, right? That we're attempting to do, but the context just doesn't allow for it. Like you have to work so hard to push back against that culture. Um, I mean, in Jamaica, like people who say they're coming to, like, I have somebody come in at 1 o'clock. They're not going to come at 1 o'clock. Like it's the culture isn't even set up for this kind of like productivity and rigidity. It's not even set up for it. So it like works on you. So being in a place where the culture is different, it actually works on you. And so that morning that I woke up in Jamaica, and I was just like, oh, those are birds. Like I can hear things that I have never heard before, really. And like the other major thing when I moved was like being able to go into my yard and pick something off of a tree and eat it. Like these are experiences that I just have never had. And it worked on me. Did you have that experience too?
No, I
Oh, you're
I'm called picky girl because I don't eat produce. So that is not something I can personally identify with. I was gonna say the number of Jamaican women and Jamaican folks I've talked to who are like, I gotta have some land. I gotta be able to go outside and pick up something I grew. That just seems to be a very Jamaican thing. It is not anything I personally can identify with. I'm trying not even to have plants because the amount of work. Now I've raised 3 children, but
right.
the amount of work it takes to keep anybody alive other than myself, I can't do it. I can't do it. Booked trip says the deprogramming from organizing life around work is real. It takes a lot of time, forward and backward motion. I think that's important to note is that if you're hearing what Unique is saying and it's resonating with you and you're like, I want that. And you're like, I've tried as she tried previously, and you didn't get the results you wanted. Don't give up. Y'all, we have been indoctrinated in that system since the day we arrived on Earth.
Gotcha.
To undo that while the system is currently trying to keep you ensnared is very, very difficult. And you got to give yourself some grace
Mhm.
when you're trying to do that. Um, you mentioned, okay, so you agreed to go to Jamaica for like 3 months. This is early pandemic times.
Mhm.
You get there, you kind of start reconsidering things, and you said that it wasn't like y'all got there and bam, y'all could stay in Jamaica forever, right? So can you tell us a little bit about the process
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
you and your husband and however many kids y'all brought with you had to go through to be where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in Jamaica. And so I have dual citizenship. So from a staying there, that was covered. Now Ronnie, my husband, did not. So he's an American. And so I had to file for some like dependent visa or something where he could stay for 3 years as long as I promised to take care of him. So that's how those things are set up. And in the meantime, he applied for his citizenship. It took 8 years for him to get citizenship. He applied in 2016 and he just got it in May. He just got awarded citizenship in May. So we're there. The pandemic is dragging on, and we are now like, okay, where do we live? Right. So we thought we lived in the US. We're here in Jamaica. It's been 6, 8, 10 months. Okay. Now we live on a hill. So our house is on a hill in Jamaica. We had bought it in 2016 for retirement. And so we can't get down into town easily. And so we say, okay, we need some kind of transportation. So we were renting rental cars on the weekends, and it just was getting to be too much. So, okay, we need to get a car, right? So that was one decision. Then the electricity bills are really high in Jamaica. So we were like, okay, since we have our job still, right? Maybe we should install solar panels. So we installed solar panels. Our bills went from 5, 6, 700 a month to $20 a month, right? So what we were doing as we were moving through the process was trying to lower our overhead so that when we knew we would have to leave our jobs, because our jobs were not permanent work remote jobs. So if we knew that we were going to have to leave our jobs, we had to make life smaller, right? So we paid for the car outright. And it wasn't a new car, it was a 10-year-old car. And we got the solar panels to reduce electricity. Then the very major decision was, okay, we bought our house when we first got married in Atlanta. We thought if the world fell apart, we would return to that house. That's our safe house. And then we thought, okay, is that really the safe house, or is this house now the safe house? If so, we need to let go of that, pay off the one in Jamaica so that we don't have rent or a mortgage to think about. Very hard decision. We did that, and so that we didn't have a mortgage. So the process was make life as small as possible from those like normal things, car payment, mortgage, all those things, so that we wouldn't have to rely on work as much. That was the calculation. And we call it in the book, our book is We Quit America. We call it divesting to invest. And so things like, I mean, you're a money coach, so you may not like this, but we stopped putting money into our 401k in order to invest in things like our solar system, in order to purchase that. Like we had to stop putting money in the things that were very classically American in order to build our new life in Jamaica. And so that's what we did. We just step by step. We knew that we were in a hurricane zone. We need to buy really good shutters, like everything step by step, so that when it was time to go back into the office, I think that was about 2022, early 2022, we both could say, we're not coming back.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. I'm not coming back. Well, it's great that y'all had the wherewithal to take advantage of having that income coming in
Yeah.
and seeing that, okay, because a lot in my line of work, I talk to a lot of people who are trying to figure out, can I retire? Do I have enough money to retire? And I say this all the time because it's the truth. It is about expenses. And
Mhm.
so your job, this could have been a mini retirement. It could have been a sabbatical, because eventually y'all were planning to earn more income, just weren't sure where it was going to come from. But again, it's about expenses. And so seeing that we cannot maintain electricity expenses like this,
Right.
and leveraging the income you had from your job to create a solution that would lower your expenses when you no longer had that income.
That's right.
For a lot of folks who are trying to, because of course, what is it? The number of people searching how to move abroad has gone up 1,500%.
Just
Um,
2016.
yeah. Well, no, this is in the last week.
No, I'm saying
Just
just like then,
yeah.
they did it. We did it then too. It's like,
Yes.
gotta get
And
out.
so and people keep that's a question I keep seeing online. Well, it's how much do I need? How much do I need? It all depends on your expenses.
Mhm.
What is the life you're going to lead? And so I like your example because a lot of people have it set in their mind, like, I have to have X amount of dollars. And
Mm,
that's not necessarily, you all had income coming in and you leveraged that income to set up some things.
that's right. That's right.
So that was great. Um, and so you had kind of 2 years of doing that before it was time
Mhm.
to tell those people, we're not coming back to
That's
these
right. That's
jobs.
right. We're not, and we basically pivoted to consulting work at a
Mm-hmm.
we're very part-time consultants. But again, because our expenses were reduced so drastically, we don't need to work full time in order to live it's a lot less income, but in order to live a good life.
And you've made another excellent point that I've made several times on this channel. I've had several guests come on because folks get so caught up in the way we do things in the States. And this is what I am earning in the US.
Wow.
And I have looked at what people make in other places, and I don't see how I can do that. You make less money than you did before.
I
I
absolutely.
make significantly less money than I did before. When I moved abroad, I took a 65% pay cut.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I I had a guest, Kima, who lives in Costa Rica, talking about how little money they make now.
Mhm.
But yet, every one of us is talking about living a life where we do not work full time.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And so, if somebody is watching this and holding on to that idea that I gotta go, when I go somewhere else, I still have to make the kind of money I was making in the US, you need to disabuse yourself of that. Again, it is going to come back to what are your expenses?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think part of what is so hard is that the American narrative about what it takes to live a good life is so ingrained. It's so powerful. It's so seductive, right? So they set it up. It's like you go to school, you graduate, you buy a house, right? It's one of the first things you do. And you hold on to that house until it appreciates. And then maybe later you sell it or it's paid off or something like that. And you put money away in your retirement account for the time when you reach 65. Like there are all these like markers for what it takes to live a good life. And to make this kind of transition, we talk in the book about quitting, we moved geographically, but there are a number of ideas that have been sold to us. It's not our fault that also we need to quit. So it's a mental quitting as well. But I am empathetic because it took us about 10 years, right? Not to make the move, but to like completely switch our thinking. And so even when you make the move, like for example, we made the move in 2020. Every 2 days we were going down to a place in town to pick up Amazon packages all the time. Like 3, 4 days a week going to pick up Amazon packages. And we had to really like interrogate that. Like, have we really quit America if we have to go pick up Amazon packages every couple of days? Like, so we had to like, so it's a constant process, right? That's what I would tell people. It's not one thing. It's so many things, and be patient with yourself and test things, experiment with things until you find a rhythm, right? So we had to stop doing that. So we don't do that anymore. And we have to be satisfied with what is available on the island. When we come to the United States, there may be a few things that we get. We try not to shop on Amazon. So they're just these things that you do, you try. To make these transitions out of what America says is what is a good life for you, and come up with that on your own, and with other people like you and others who are redefining what it means to live a good life.
I That's one of the things I talk about a lot is you have to reframe things, but I like how y'all done it. Quitting America is also quitting quitting the entire American experiment, uh, shifting your thinking, changing your mindset, because most of the ideals we bring with us from the US will not serve us
Mhm,
in our lives abroad.
mhm,
Because it's one of the reasons that I left myself, particularly uh, American, like the glorification of individualism and American exceptionalism were particular big issues for me that I wanted to be away from.
yep,
But those things are, again, embedded in us. And
mhm.
if you bring those with you into your life abroad, you're going to be making things difficult for yourself.
Exactly. I wanted to share something and now it slipped. So let's keep going. Let's keep going.
It'll come back to you. It'll come back to you. Okay. So a question that I have, because I grew up and I have friends who were from the Caribbean and their parents made whatever sacrifices to get them to the US.
Yeah.
And when a lot of those people have then said, hey, I'm moving back to the country you moved from, or I'm moving somewhere else, they were met with, like, well, why would you do that? This
Mhm.
is America. This is the land where anything is possible. And
Yeah.
they got some pushback. And so I'm curious about in your situation, what was your experience?
Yeah. So my mother told me much later that when she left Jamaica to move to the United States, for the first few days, first few weeks, she felt like this kind of out of body, like, what am I doing here? Why did I come here? You know, but she did it. She and my father did it because they felt like the US would offer a better opportunities for their three daughters, right? So they pursued the American narrative, right? Um, when we decided to make this shift back to Jamaica, for me it was back to Jamaica. Um, my mother was quite supportive. Um, and now she lives with us. She moved in with us in 2021 and is living her very best life. She loves being back home. So I didn't have quite that experience. I didn't have the experience, the pushback from my closest family members. As a matter of fact, my sisters are now exploring life overseas, not in Jamaica, but possible life overseas. And so I haven't had that experience, but I can imagine that people might have it. And I think what I say to people who bring this particular thing up is live your life. Let people come and visit and experience for themselves. Um, and you don't have to like try to convince anybody of anything, but live the beautiful life that you imagine and invite people to experience that with you. And you'd be surprised at people coming with you. There's a story in the book about a young man who said that he felt like he was, just drowning in the U.S. Felt like he was going to be living under a bridge if he couldn't figure out what to do. His mother was already in Mexico. She had made the move a few years before. And he called her and he's just lamenting. And she says, why don't you come? And it was an opening for him to come. And he left and went to be with her. And that's how people migrate. One person goes, and then before you know it, a whole community has moved. And so people will make the choice if it makes sense for them. And you going, setting up, being in places makes the opening more possible.
I love that you mentioned, like, it's not our job to convince anybody. I think if there's one lesson we can take from what has transpired over the last week or so,
Mm,
is
mm,
that particularly for Black women, we ain't got to sell anybody on anything. Go out there, sis, and live the life of your dreams.
that's right.
You don't have to try and get folks to come along with you, because everybody is on their own journey.
Yeah,
And some folks are never going to be at a place where they are ready to go.
that's right. That's
That's
right.
for them, and
That's right.
there is something else for you.
For you. That's right.
We had a few questions before, because I wanted to ask you some questions about the book. But first, I want to take care of these questions about y'all's experience in Jamaica.
Okay.
Um, did you all ship anything,
Uh,
or did y'all just sell everything and start over?
Good question. Let's see. So we did import a few things, like a couch and things like that. Everything else we bought in Jamaica. Actually, we hired local craftsmen. They were all men, craftsmen, to build our furniture. So all of our beds, our four-poster bed in the master bedroom, the nightstands, coffee tables, everything we bought locally. And that was through craftspeople. So really good carpenters, really solid wood. Like we got everything beautifully made by local people, and bought like other things there and shipped a few things. So it was a mix of things, but we were really committed to putting our money into the local economy.
I love that. I am curious for the sofa that you imported, did
Mhm.
it need to be treated like for termites or anything like that to,
No.
okay, just
Mm-mm.
curious about that.
No.
Um, what are y'all doing for healthcare? Because
Nice.
that is probably outside of, well, I don't have a job there,
Yeah.
the number one thing that often serves as a barrier for people that can't quite navigate it.
Yeah, that's such a good question. We have a whole chapter dedicated to that, income, healthcare, and retirement. Okay, so we mix things right now. So things may change, but right now we mix our care between the U.S. and Jamaica. So in the US, we have health insurance on the exchange, and we use that health insurance for some of the major things. Like we both need to do colonoscopies because of some family history. So those kinds of things we do in the United States. But for our basic healthcare, our regular visits, mammograms, all those things, we do those in Jamaica, and it's so inexpensive for us. I mean, you're talking my mammogram, I think my mammogram was $50. And that's not the copay, that's the whole thing. I think my husband did he had some knee problems and he had to do an MRI on the knee. I think it was $50. So the cost of healthcare is just so much lower. Now, from a emergency care perspective, which can be tricky in Jamaica. It may not be everywhere, but in Jamaica it can be tricky because of the health infrastructure. We purchase a health insurance that is a travel health insurance. We did that for a few years, but we actually don't have it anymore. We actually decided to stop using that, and just said, if there is an emergency, we will use our credit cards and deal with it if we have to. Um, so we move between the two countries right now. I hope one day that we will get our healthcare um, completely in Jamaica or somewhere else, because the US healthcare system not only produces sick people, um, but it's also very costly, it's very wasteful, and I feel like we are holding on to it because just in case we might need those expensive machines, but we don't want to. We want to let go of a very unhealthy healthcare system and move to completely getting our healthcare in Jamaica or somewhere else.
F doctor is shocked at a $50 mammogram. I got a mammogram last week for $24.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
And that was not a copay.
That was
I did save 30% because I booked it online, but like I didn't have to ask anybody. Nobody had to approve it. I
that's
just went on the website and said, this is what I need, and
that's
got it. Um, is there a, because what I thought you were going to say about emergency, well, I have two questions.
yeah, yeah.
One about emergencies. Are you in a more urban area or are you like out the
Yeah.
bush?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where we live is considered rural. So it's 10 minutes we're up a hill 10 minutes, but we are 20 minutes from town, like from, bustling Montego Bay. And then from the hospital that we use, we're about 30 minutes from it. So I've used that hospital. My mom has used that hospital. We've had to use the hospital for care, and we haven't even actually used our insurance, which is why we stopped using it, because we just paid the minimal costs for blood work and things like that, and it wasn't worth the cost.
And is there an ambulance service? Like if, or would you need to, somebody would need to drive you there?
Yeah, we would need to drive, or have somebody drive us. There is, but it's just not as reliable as in the United States.
And I only ask because sometimes the life we dream about
Hmm.
and the reality of our situation don't always go together. So someone might have this idea of like, I'm going to be off the grid and growing my own food and blah, 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 but they've got a medical condition
Hmm.
that they need to be able to quickly get to a hospital.
Yep.
Those two things may not
Right.
work together in the same way that you would expect them to. My other question was, is there any sort of public system that Jamaica has that eventually, well, you are a citizen,
Mhm.
that you can partake in?
Yeah, there is a public system. It is very underfunded. It is not. It is there. It is not where it needs to be. And I just want to be clear that for Jamaica and many other places where there has been hundreds of years of extraction from those countries. The reason why those systems can't ever catch up is because of that histories of colonialism. And so when you go to those countries, or when you're in those countries, we ask that people really have grace colored lenses. So instead of like, they can't even get their roads paved or whatever, to really understand that a lot of what you might experience is related to those histories, the same histories that govern your life in the United States are the same histories that govern people's lives in other places where extraction has taken place. So being graceful, being and also just being flexible, just it's really an expansion of like what it means to be well. So for example, there's one woman in the book, we interviewed her, what are you doing for healthcare? She said, I'm staying healthy. It blew me away. Like, her answer to healthcare was, I am going to be a healthy person. So I'm going to eat well. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to see my therapist, she said. Like, she had all this infrastructure around staying well. Whereas in America, we think we're going to be sick, because we know we will, because the country produces sickness. And so I need a machine. I need a doctor. I need health care. And she really challenged me when she said that. I am committed to my health. And I can do that away from the United States and its sickness inducing systems.
I think what you're saying, that's all tied to quitting and letting go of the way, the things that we expect, the things that we consider to be normal and basic.
That's right.
When we choose to live somewhere else, we've got to redefine those things.
Exactly.
I've talked about this before. I was a little disturbed when I discovered that Mexico City, a city with more than 20 million people, the city only has 42 ambulances,
Oh.
because I
Mm,
just assumed everywhere the
mm,
ambulances go with the fire department, and
mm,
no. So, one of the things we're working on is finding an ambulance service,
mm,
and the level of stock and care you can get in an ambulance varies from one to another.
mm,
So, I could lament and be like, well, they should do it like the US, or I adapt to, that is the reality here.
mhm. Right.
What precautions can I take and
That's
then go on with my life?
that's right. That's exactly right.
We had a question about solar panels.
Mm, mm.
That process, was it straightforward? Did
Mhm.
it cost more or less than something comparable in the US?
Mhm. Um, I don't know about the comparability because I had not shopped or even done any work to do solar panels in the US, but it was very straightforward. Um, I don't remember how we found our solar panel person. I think it was a recommendation by someone we met. He came, he measured our output, our electrical output, made a recommendation, came and installed. It's been working beautifully since, not one issue. Our bills have plummeted. And then the other benefit, like during a hurricane, we just had Hurricane Beryl come through this year. Um, we didn't even realize that this was a benefit that we could use the solar power system when there was no power, and the batteries at nighttime like could provide us power. So we were the only house with power. And then we became the house that everybody came to in the neighborhood to put their meats in our, fridge and in our freezer and charge their phones. And a lot of people, we weren't actually there at the time, but my mom was there. So people were hanging out with my mom and charging their phones. And so it just ended up being a beautiful thing. Not just because it dropped our bills, but because it like created this hub for electricity
For
and
community.
for community. That's exactly right.
Okay. So I am curious, what made y'all write this book?
Mm,
Because there are plenty of us who have moved abroad and haven't chosen to do that. So I am interested in understanding why y'all chose to.
yeah. Yeah, we love Black people. We love Black people, and we are committed to Black people's liberation. And in 2016, when Trump won the first time, we learned that people had been Googling how to leave America. Where should I, where do I go? And uh, we knew that if this were to happen again, people would be doing the same thing because the fear, the anxiety would be driving questions about how to leave. And we wanted to create not the kind of resource that I'm referring lots of people to others for, like the technical things. The technical things are absolutely important, but we wanted to create a resource for how to like think about your values. What kind of values do you want to bring to the decision making process? We wanted to bring this idea of divesting to invest. We wanted to share our actual numbers, which was very terrifying for me, but we actually share our incomes, what we have in our savings, what we have in our retirement account, like real specific in ways that we are taught not to do, to not talk about money with each other. We wanted to give exact numbers, mortgages, all of the things so that people, not to copy us, right? Because everybody has a different situation, but to be real, to be very real and open about what we were working with, and to include stories of others so people could know what people are working with, all the different ways that people did it. So it was more of a, this is possible. We wanted to write a book about the possibility that this can happen for you. It may seem like hard, and we talk about the hard, but it is possible. And we also wanted to be very clear about the America that you are attempting to leave, so that you just really understand, you really get clear on why you are making this choice, and all the trade-offs and the nuances. So it's not like a clear cut, like you do this XYZ. It's really about like framing your exit. How do you frame your exit as a Black person in a world in which we've had a very particular experience with colonialism.
Um, I think that it's important to remind folks who are watching this, particularly the Black folks who are watching this, that the system, colonialism, white supremacy, that system is wholly built on us being at the bottom
That's right.
and our labor
That's right.
being exploited.
Right. Absolutely.
I know I might make some folks mad here, but I don't believe that the people who succeed, the Black and the brown people, but particularly the Black people who succeed in that system, do it in spite of
Mhm.
everything trying to make that not happen.
That's right.
And so we take all of that with us when we go to a new place. And you moved back to the country you were from, but for your husband, who
Mhm.
is a Black American man,
Mhm.
his experience being Black is a little different than yours.
Okay.
And so he's now in this new country, this Black country, but everybody's Blackness, their experience Blackness, how they do it, it's different.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so we have to be careful about when we go somewhere else, really questioning uh, our beliefs,
Yeah. Yep.
because some of those are ours, some of those were given to us,
Mhm.
and really letting go of that stuff. And I always tell people, don't have any expectations when you go somewhere else. Who is this book? Who should not read this book?
Mhm. Wow, interesting question. Who should not read this book? Hmm.
Or who's not the audience for this book?
Well, this book is not for white people. So this is not a book for white people. And I've heard someone reached out to me and said, "Hey, a lot of white people are talking about leaving America. Can I give them your book?" And I'm like, "You can, but it's not written
Not
for
for
them.
them.
It's not written for them. But they can read it. It's just not written for them." We also have a few people that we've met at book talks who are quite resistant to the ideas in this book. Um, and it feels in some ways like maybe we've triggered something, right? So one guy got up at a book talk, actually our launch talk, and said he thought we were being selfish for leaving Black people behind.
And if you were,
And I said that to him. I said it ultimately. I said, I feel that, I empathize. And this was a self-preservation move. We wanted to save our marriage and we wanted to save our health. So yes, there is a lot of this that is selfish. So for people who pick this up because they want to debate the ideas in the book, my husband is great at debating. I'm not interested in debating. I'm not interested in debating. I wanted to share this story to give people, inspire people to think about their options, to think about how they can be well and have a good life in another context. And if you want to talk about that, I'm so open to that. I'm not interested in debating. But if you do want to debate, Ronnie would love to be in that conversation with you.
I'm still stuck on this, that it's selfish that you are leaving these people behind because you owe them. And I know I'm probably ruffling some feathers, but those of you who have watched my videos know how I feel about this idea of obligation,
Mm,
particularly for women,
mm,
particularly for Black women.
Black
This
women.
idea
Right.
that I have to do this because I am obligated to. No, we don't do that over here.
Right.
So that's I was gonna say that's interesting. It's not really interesting, but that's a bold thing to stand up in somebody's book talk and tell them.
Stood up and said it, right? So there's some like edge. I remember one question. This was before the election. The book was, we put the book out on, I think it was LinkedIn or something, and someone said, I don't really care if you quit America. I just want to know if you're voting. Are you voting? Right. So, like a little edge to the question. And we did vote. We did vote. We are still citizens. We still want to be supportive of Black folks. We don't quit Black people. We're quitting America, but not Black people. And so, yeah, so there's some edge. So if you want to be in that kind of edgy debate, I'm not your girl. I'm not your girl.
The conversation folks really ain't ready for is that voting is not how you change
I
systems.
know. I know.
Okay. It's gonna take more than that, y'all, but we're not gonna have that conversation tonight,
Mm,
but it's gonna take more than voting.
yeah.
Um, where can people get the book?
Yes, thank you for asking. We do not have it on Amazon, so you have to go to our website, wequitamerica.com. You can purchase a digital copy, which you can download to your computer or to any reading device, or you can purchase a hard copy and it will be shipped to you. Wequitamerica.com.
Do you ship worldwide?
Oh, good question. We ship to certain places in Europe, Canada, but not everywhere. Not everywhere. So we
Okay.
would recommend the digital version for people in most other places.
I applaud y'all for not putting it on Amazon.
It was
Um, I I work very hard to divest myself of I am picky, not just about food, but I am also very picky about how I spend my money. And in those ways, it's one of the reasons a lot of creators are like Amazon affiliates. I don't want to be encouraging people to go shop at Amazon. That's why I never have any kinds of links. So I definitely applaud y'all for that. I know that you've chosen a more difficult path.
it is a more difficult path. It is a much more difficult path. But there are just certain things, certain values, certain decisions that we have made, and we live with the good and the bad of those decisions. But as long as we're clear, and we're clear on this one.
Okay, so the book is called We Quit America. There's a link in the description to the website where you can order it, wequitamerica.com. Thank you for joining us tonight.
For having me.
I hope for everybody who is here live and for those of you who are watching the replay in the future, I hope this conversation and Unique's experience give you, I guess, some food for thought,
Yeah.
as I'm sure many of you are contemplating a move, or you're in the midst of, even if you're not leaving America permanently and maybe you're just taking some time away. Um, I hope this conversation tonight gave you some food for thought about like your why and what your journey is going to look like and that sort of thing. So thank you for being here.
Thank
Thank y'all for coming.